I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're diving into one of the oldest and heated debates of all time, religion versus science. The name of the book, Religion and Science, Thoughts of a Common Jim. The author is a terrific guest, one of my favorite here on our show. His name is Jim Hillman. He brings a fresh perspective, not as a theologian or a scientist, but as an everyday observer seeking truth. Through personal experiences, deep reflection, and years of discussions, this book challenges the emotional arguments on both sides and explores the possibility of faith and reasoning coexisting. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. We ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Jim, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Good to be here.
This is such a great book. What made you decide to tackle the subject of religion versus science?
Uh, well, it really started back in the spring of 91. It was right after the storm, and I had to do some deep reflection of what is it that I actually view, my own faith.
Mhm.
And various discussions with different friends of mine, some of whom were Christian, others pagan, others atheist, and a couple of agnostics. And online research into both, Christianity and atheism and a couple other religions. And eventually I got to the point where I need to start just putting everything down on paper to help solidify, what is it I do believe? What do I know? What do I understand? And what do I believe? And a book came out of it, kind
Yeah.
of more of an accident more than anything else. And a friend of mine read it and said, "Well, maybe I'll just publish it." And I was like,
Mm.
"Okay,"
Yeah.
and here I am.
Well, we're glad you did. It's an important book. I think it's sheds light on some important aspects of the debate. What do you think some of the biggest misconceptions people have about the relationship between faith and science?
The two has to be exclusive.
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing right there. I mean, when you think about it, the scripture never actually says how God does anything. I mean, how did He split the Red Sea? How did He resurrect Jesus? Um, Science. I honestly think that God deliberately did that so that we can research and learn about the world around us because scripture does say um, that he is everywhere. It's not
Mhm.
just in scripture, he's in the world itself.
Mhm.
As far as science, there are areas that science has not gone, um, partially due to the current lack of technology. For example, what came before the singularity?
Mhm.
The history of science tells me that with the right resources, the right knowledge, the right technology, the right motivation, and the right patience, anything is possible.
Yeah,
So, yes, at some point, science will be able to explore before the singularity.
right.
Other things is like, how are we supposed to relate to each other? How are we supposed to treat one another? So, the two are talking about issues that the other is not touching. So, if you bring them together, you get a better and more complete picture.
What are your thoughts on creationism versus evolution?
I go with intelligent design, in which, yes, God then used a process, and evolution is the process.
Mhm.
7 days could be seven time periods. Like you said,
Mhm.
1,000 years is a day, and a day is 1,000 years.
Right.
Um, why can't 1,000 years also be 1,000,000 years?
Mhm.
I mean,
Exactly. Exactly. Just because just because you believe in evolution doesn't mean that God did not create the evolution or enable the evolution or put the
somebody
pieces
wrote the
together.
laws of evolution. Somebody had to write the laws of evolution. So why not, you know, why not God? And of
Exactly.
course, it does presuppose that something came before the universe, which science says there is a possibility of a multiverse,
Hmm.
which does suggest something came before our universe.
Yeah.
So
Did your military background influence your thoughts on science and religion?
I think so, yes. For one, you do have to take certain things on faith. For example, um, in aviation, which is where what Army aviation is where I came from. When a pilot, excuse me, when a pilot gets into his helicopter, there is a certain amount of faith that the mechanics did the job right
Mhm.
in getting the aircraft up. At the same time, there's also a thing of research, learn,
Mhm.
double check, trust but verify. And so, yeah, they both played their part in constructing what I know and believe.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Do you think religious institutions, churches have adapted well to modern scientific advancements? Do you think they embrace them? Do you think they understand them? Do you think
Well,
they?
religion is not monolithic, okay? So some have, some haven't. Um, and then when you break it down into individual denominations, it gets even more so on the extremes on one end to the other. And then you get down to individual, and it's even more variety. Uh, at some point, I think it will happen. And it's that thing of trust but verify.
Mhm.
Um, Religion is the more open-minded denominations and congregations, individuals. It's more the well, we're going to sit back and wait,
Mhm.
and because science has not yet got the full picture yet, and we'll just sit back and wait and see what they learn, see what they discover.
Absolutely. Let's give the folks at home an overview of the book. What will they find when they crack the covers and look inside?
First, I'll talk a little bit about myself and why I wrote the book and why they think they should listen to me.
Mhm.
Um, the next big part is about the debate between the two and where I think both of them where I'm having issues with both of them,
Mhm.
where both of them are not listening to the other, and similar issues. The next part is where I talk about science and some of the issues I have with science in regards to religion. Um, One of which seems to be a lot of we're just not going to listen to your evidence because we just think it's bunk and we're not going to pay attention to you. And as far as whether or not God exists or not, the only thing they give is doubt, whereas they insist on evidence from us. The third part is religion and some of the issues that I've heard from atheists addressing into religion and some of the things that need to be addressed.
Mhm.
One of which is some of the passages I believe has been misinterpreted. The primary example would have to be um, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth.
Mhm.
What everyone normally believes is it's all about vengeance. But if you take it in context, in Deuteronomy, before and after, it's talking about equality for the law.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking that's what eye for an eye and tooth is. The eye of the king is equal to the eye of the peasant. The
Mhm.
tooth of the outsider is equal to yours.
Interesting perspective for sure. What do you hope readers take away from your book?
Um, Hopefully a lot more open-mindedness towards each other. And
Mm.
it's aimed not just at theists, it's also aimed towards atheists.
Yeah.
And not only that, but also towards different religions like Christians and Muslims, Christians and Hindus and other religions.
Mhm.
Just be more open minded.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you thinking about working on any other books?
I have thought about uh, politics, religion and politics. I've also thought about I have been reading history since I was age of 10, and I've thought about some perspectives on history.
Mm.
One of which, especially in the light of the war in Ukraine, about predicting military. You know,
Mm.
so many things were predicted back in 2020 that came to be not true. Some of them were just flat out false in
Mm.
Ukraine. Um, I thought about tackling that.
Yeah.
Um, and I've kicked around the idea with my publisher about maybe at some point turning my book into a movie, but right now finance is a little sketchy on that.
Okay.
But we are looking into translating my book into Spanish and possibly French.
Wonderful, wonderful. It all sounds great. I think more books would be wonderful. I think more perspectives from a so-called common Jim would be a great thing to have because there's too many people with too many degrees who think they know what they're saying out there and they say a lot of nothing. You have really gotten down to the nuts and bolts of it all and really outlined the your thoughts and perspectives on religion and science so well. The name of the book is Religion and Science, Thoughts of a Common Jim. In it, Jim Hillman brings a fresh perspective, not as a theologian or a scientist, but as an everyday observer, seeking truth through personal experiences, deep reflection, and years of discussion. This book challenges the emotional arguments on both sides and explores the possibility, the absolute possibility, that faith and reason can coexist. Jim, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you,
for having
sir.
me.
I appreciate your time and your insight. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.